game, the very first game that I wanted to talk about, this game is going to have some absolute haymakers. Could have a huge impact on the college football playoff down the line. We got to start with one of the best neutral site games in all of college football. We got to rock with the Red River rivalries presented by Allstate. This, of course, is going to kick off your college football action. It's going to be kicking off at noon over on ABC to kick things started. Oklahoma and Texas once again going to go at it. Texas, they do have the lead in this series. Texas does have a 63-50 advantage over the Oklahoma Sooners. This is considered a top 15 matchup. But I think, according to the Any Given Saturday power ratings, I think this should be a top 10 matchup, to be honest with you guys. Both these teams have been playing at an extraordinarily high level right now. Both teams coming into this matchup 5-0. Texas, their most important win on the road against Alabama. And they are also coming off of another top 25 win against the Kansas Jayhawks. And while Oklahoma hasn't been as tested as the Texas Longhorns, they have handled their business in their own right, being able to win in a multitude of different ways, sometimes leaning on their offense, such as when they put 66 up on Tulsa, or most recently, Iowa State putting up 50 against the Iowa State Cyclones. They also put up 73 against Arkansas State, but that was more of an expected result. But sometimes they've been able to lean on their defense, even in times when maybe the offense hasn't been humming or maybe hasn't clicked on every single level, such as the SMU game or the Cincinnati game, a game that I personally intended. And I personally gotten a chance to go ahead and watch where they only put up 48 points in those two games combined. So what's at stake? What is at stake here between these two particular squads? Not only national implications, but these two teams are still in the Big 12 as of right now. This is the last season that these two teams will be in the Big 12 after this college football season. This rivalry game will be considered an SEC matchup. Not a huge fan of it, and that has been documented many times, but it is what it is at this point. We're also starting to get to, like I said, that college football playoff. And this is going to have college football implications as well, because this is the first time. This is actually the first time that we've seen these teams undefeated going into this particular matchup since 2011. And I'm a full-grown adult now, but the last time that's happened, that I was a freshman in high school, and I was certainly a lot different back in the early 2010s than I am today. So that's a big consideration. So winning this game is going to give whoever wins this game an inside track to make it to the Big 12 championship, because both for Texas and also for Oklahoma, this is going to be their toughest games of the season. For both Texas and Oklahoma, I'm looking at their schedules initially, and I really do see Texas being favored in every single game after this. Same thing could be said for Oklahoma. I could see them winning possibly every single game after this, or at least they'll be favored. But whoever does win this game, they do get a little bit bigger of a margin of error because of how the tiebreakers works in the event that Oklahoma and Texas do still somehow finish with these similar records, the same records in conference play. That could certainly happen in a 9-game schedule. So we have that. We got Big 12 implications. We also have national championship implications. And we're also going to find out how good is Oklahoma. Oklahoma may be 5-0 right now, but ranked number 12 in the country. This might be a situation where maybe the perception of what Oklahoma was last season is playing into the consideration with how they're being ranked this year. Because let's face it, Oklahoma had an extremely down season last year. Ended up going 6-7 That is very below expectations. That is not the standard that is at place at the University of Oklahoma. So that's fresh in a lot of people's minds. We're going to see how good this Oklahoma team is. Now, here's what I'll say about Oklahoma, okay? This Oklahoma team, while they haven't played the most impressive teams as of yet, they are 5-0 against the spread. So every time that they stepped on the field so far this season, they have covered the spread thus far this year. Texas hasn't completely been able to do that. They're a little bit less, 3-2. They weren't able to cover against Wyoming or Rice, but they should be able to get up for this game too. Because like I said earlier, for Texas, this is going to be the biggest game of the year. With that being said, what is going to be that big time matchup? What's to really watch out for in this Red River rivalry? What is going to really decide it? It's going to be, can the Oklahoma defense keep Quinn Ewers contained in the pocket? We know how dangerous of a passer he's been this year. 1,300 yards, 10 touchdowns, 1 interception. But maybe what hasn't been talked about nearly as much is just how dangerous he has been on the ground this season as well. While his rushing numbers might not be the most impressive, okay? So his running numbers so far this year, 25 carries, 74 yards. Not necessarily the most eye-popping in terms of rushing yards for a quarterback, but he does have 5 rushing touchdowns so far this year. He has found the end zone on the ground in every single game, with the exception of that Alabama game. And he's been able to rip off a couple of big runs as well when he does scramble outside the pocket. He's got a 29-yard run, for example, against Baylor. He also had a 30-yard run in their most recent matchup against the Kansas Jayhawks as well. So not only has Quinn Ewers continued to develop as a passer, he's actually having a significantly better passing season than what he did in his first year starting at Texas. This was, of course, a guy had a good season, not a great season because of injuries, but Quinn Ewers has taken that step forward as a passer, but he's also going to get done on the ground. He's been shown that ability to be that dual threat quarterback for the Texas Longhorns. So if with all the weapons that Texas does have, and it's well beyond Quinn Ewers, can the Oklahoma defense keep Quinn Ewers, at least make him a little bit more one-dimensional? And that defense is going to be led by Danny Stutzman. Danny Stutzman, he's a linebacker, true junior out of Windermere, Florida. He's leading this team in tackles as of right now. He leads the team in sacks. He's also been able to force a couple of turnovers, got an interception, has a fumble recovery as well. Danny Stutzman, he is the leader of this Oklahoma defense that has been playing at a higher level. And keep in mind, Brent Venables, he is a defensive-minded coach as well. So I'm sure he's going to be well involved in the defensive game plan this upcoming week. That's certainly something to watch out for. Can Oklahoma force Quinn Ewers to at least be one-dimensional? We'll just have to wait and see, because this Oklahoma defense has not been tested like it's about to be tested this weekend. And while it's not a road game, it's also not a home game as well. Those neutral site games could always be a little bit tricky. Other players to watch out for in this particular ball game. We'll start out with the underdogs. We'll go to Oklahoma. Dillon Gabriel. Dillon Gabriel is going to have himself a day. We didn't necessarily see him in the game last year. This was a guy that actually missed the Red River rivalry last year because he was dealing with a concussion and he was not cleared at the time. That was a big reason why Oklahoma was routed 49-0 last year. Dillon Gabriel didn't play, and their backup quarterback got absolutely crushed. Texas shown to be a physical team, more physical than what people give him credit for last year. And That physicality has continued for this Texas squad as they progress through this season. But Dillon Gabriel is healthy. He's healthy again, and Dillon Gabriel, listen, you could think that Quinn Ewers is a better quarterback than Dillon Gabriel, but there might not be as big of a gap as maybe folks would realize. Gabriel is quietly having a really good season as well. Almost 1,600 yards himself, 15 touchdowns. Did throw a couple of interceptions. I think he might have threw an interception against my Bearcats. I will never apologize for being a Cincinnati Bearcats fan. But that being said, this Oklahoma team is different when Dillon Gabriel is on the field. They're a more dynamic offense. The Texas linebacker, Jaylan Ford, he calls him the head of the snake. So, I mean, you know what Texas is thinking about too, trying to shut down Dillon Gabriel, because he too is a little bit of a running threat as well. Maybe not as dynamic as Quinn Ewers, but he knows a thing or two about when it's a 3rd and short or when they're down by the goal line. He can put it in inside the end zone himself if need be, although he does prefer to be someone that likes to pass the football. As for Texas, besides Quinn Ewers, we also got to take a look at Jonathan Brooks. Jonathan Brooks, he's been on a tear in the last few games. He's been running for over 100 yards in 3 consecutive games. He's also currently leading the Big 12 right now in terms of rushing yards. He has over 500 yards on the ground. He's averaging, 110, 120 yards a game? I mean, it's astronomically high. Texas, you maybe think of Texas and the first thing you think of is, the Flash with Steve Sarkisian. But they can run the ball too. They're a very physical group. And that physicality could very well dictate how this game turns out. And if they're able to turn it into a more physical game, I could see Texas winning this football game. Now, we'll go ahead. We're going to check out what you've been watching it on screen the entire time in the preview on this little graphic that we made. So we see the line. I saw it as of this afternoon. I'm recording on God, the time has flied past. October 5th. We're recording as of October 5th. So the line right now is 5.5. However, the Any Given Saturday power rating model thinks that the wrong team is favored. The model thinks that Oklahoma should be favored at -6. Now, you could scoff at that all you want, but that being said, the model has predicted who's won correctly over 70% of the time. So do what you want with that information. We are not betting on the spread of the Texas and Oklahoma game. We're not going to do that. We might sprinkle something on the over, which we might talk about a little bit later. We'll see what happens with the best bets. But what do I think is going to happen? Who do I think is going to win this game? That's a tough call. That is truly a tough call. I was thinking about it all day while I was at work today. I was thinking about it while I was at while I was driving to and from work. And I don't even know. I'm about to give my answer, but I don't know if I'm going to be fully convicted in this answer, right? I'm going to side with the model. I think Oklahoma is going to pull a slight upset. They're going to take down Texas in the Red River rivalry, get revenge from that 49-0 victory from last season, because I think this Oklahoma team is a different team than what we saw last season. I think that this Oklahoma team, because they have been able to win in a multitude of different ways, I think that Oklahoma can find a way to win this game. I think they can pull the upset off. But that being said, they got to pull away before the fourth quarter, before that fourth quarter starts. Because Sarkisian, you are what you are intentional about. That's what he said earlier this year. Texas has been one of the best fourth quarter teams in the entire country. So if Oklahoma's going to pull this out, you do not want to be close with the Texas Longhorns going into the fourth quarter. You need to be able to pull away in that third quarter, make it a double-digit lead. That's going to give them their best chance. I think they'll be able to do that because of how Oklahoma's been able to win in a multitude of different ways this year. I think Texas will make it close again in the fourth quarter, but I think Oklahoma hangs on and they beat the Texas Longhorns in that Red River rivalry, or as some Texas fans, I've seen them call it, the Red River Showdown. I prefer the former instead of the latter.